What does it mean to love? We say it often to our family members, our friends, and our intimate partners. But how often do we stop to think about what love actually means? How often do we think about the sentiment and the information we are actively communicating when we tell someone, "I love you"? To better understand this, we will need to break a few things down and unpack the idea of love and its implications. To steal the best definition of love I have ever found from quite possibly the best philosopher I have ever read, Stefan Molyneux defines love as our involuntary response to virtue. There is a lot in this definition that we must further break down in order to garner a more complete understanding. Let us start with virtue. What is virtue? The dictionary definition that I find the most elucidative is conformity of one's life and conduct to moral and ethical principles. I prefer perhaps a less formal definition, which is living in accordance with one's values. For example, I value honesty, so in order to be virtuous, I must be honest. I value trustworthiness, so I must be trustworthy. I value integrity, so I must have it and live in accordance with it. The same is true for empathy, benevolence, courage, wisdom, and magnanimity. As we start to understand virtue, we understand that we not only must learn what our values are, we must understand them to their fullest. We must understand further that in order to be virtuous, we must understand what it means to live in accordance with all of our values. What's more is that in order to be in love, we must learn to recognize all of these virtues in others, our family members, our friends, and especially our desired intimate partner. This, of course, requires a considerable amount of self-knowledge, and then it requires a considerable amount of knowledge about those around you. To have an involuntary response to something requires a deep level of intimate knowledge. You pull your hand away from a flame not because it is hot, but because your brain knows what will happen to your hand if it is exposed to the flame. Your subconscious brain has a deep understanding of what will happen to your flesh if exposed to the flame, and forces you to involuntarily react accordingly. In order to involuntarily respond to virtue, you must know enough about the other people in your life to know if they actually have the virtues you seek. Our knowledge of the others in our lives often revolves around the simplistic and ultimately insignificant. Think of your best friend. What makes him or her your best friend? Is it a shared affinity for sports? A love of action movies? For women, is it a love to get your nails done and gossip? Largely, these things are trivial. It is important to know your best friend's favorite movies, books, and places to eat. But ultimately, these are the things that should make the underlying relationship fun to share, not the things that hold it together. How trustworthy is your best friend? How trustworthy are you? Does your friend lie to you? Do you lie to him or her? If your friend is having a serious struggle with his mom being in the hospital, do you empathize with him and provide whatever support may be needed? Would your friend do the same for you? Do you not only share the same values, but practice the same virtues? If you do, then congratulations. You have a very rare relationship. As an interesting aside, I often wonder if this is why some people, often single and possibly reclusive, become so attached to animals. There's nothing wrong with having a dog and loving him, or even having a cat as a companion. But when the best relationship you have in your life is with your four-legged friend, you need to do some serious personal evaluation and start finding people that can fill that void. A pet can give you all kinds of affection, but ultimately they fall short of providing you with the true empathy and compassion that comes with a virtuous relationship. I recently got out of a 2-year relationship, and after talking about it with a friend, a real friend as described earlier, she mentioned that love failed. I do not agree with that supposition, and I explained to her why. Love cannot fail. Love is defined above as the involuntary response to virtue, and in order to have love, one must be able to objectively identify the virtue in his or her partner. Relationships always fail not because love fails, but because virtue is either misidentified or overlooked in the relationship's formation. If you are open and honest with your potential partner, and your potential partner is open and honest with you, you will be able to objectively identify the virtues the other possesses. When you have the same shared virtues and life goals, you will fall involuntarily in love. This relationship cannot fail. However, if you are not honest with your partner, or are not honest with yourself and overlook potential red flags in the relationship, no amount of affection or lust will save that relationship. Despite how much you proclaim you love each other, you have never actually achieved love, and the relationship will necessarily fall apart. A deep, meaningful, joyous, and loving relationship is difficult to achieve. It requires a considerable amount of self-knowledge and personal honesty, both with yourself and your perceptions of your prospective partner. Ignoring potentially upsetting habits or personal limitations of your prospective partner because you find him or her extremely attractive is a clear indication of self-destructive behavior, and it must be avoided if your relationship is to succeed. It can seem daunting to achieve, but nothing in life worth having was ever easy. Hormones are animalistic in nature, and while they do provide appropriate signaling for reproduction, ultimately they must be kept in check in order to effectively evaluate virtue. Should you choose to embark upon this journey, you will be rewarded with the kind of happiness Hollywood scriptwriters can only vaguely evoke, even in their most award-winning scripts. This type of relationship is so hard to understand because it is so rarely seen. You know what a car is because you can see them everywhere. You may even own one. A relationship that is voluntary, joyous, mutually beneficial, deep, meaningful, fun, and a real pleasure to have and to hold is often sometimes something sadly beyond our scope of comprehension. We come from a family life that is not voluntary, and unfortunately not often enough joyous, mutually beneficial, deep, meaningful, or fun. How is your relationship with your parents? How about with your siblings, should you have any? If you were not born into your family, would you willingly associate with these people? If the answer is no, you should either invest in getting to know them better or move on. There is no shame in removing toxic relationships from your life, no matter how obligated you feel to them or how guilty you feel ending them. Even if you quit smoking, you cannot hope to have healthy lungs if you continue to hang around with smokers. I am by no means advocating that you should arbitrarily stop seeing your family of origin. I am, however, suggesting you reevaluate all of your relationships to see if they fit in accordance with your virtues. If you don't, you are not living in accordance with honesty or integrity. Only by removing the toxins from your life can you hope to move on to a better and healthier life. You must also reevaluate your friendships. Are the people in your life you consider friends helping you improve your life, or are they holding you back? Do they help you study for that final exam, or do they guilt you into going out and partying with them all night? Do they help you prepare for that upcoming job interview, or do they simply tell you, "You've got this, now come play video games"? Do they experiment with the new vegan diet with you, or do they ask you, "Where are you going to get your protein from"? Do they tell you it would be too hard, you look great, and guys dig chicks with curves? Or for guys, "The dad bod is all the rage, you fit that perfectly"? If your so-called friends are holding you back from achieving your life's goals, dump them. There will be plenty of opportunity to find better people out there, and the guilt will subside quickly, should you feel any at all. If your friends are helping you achieve your life's goals, on the other hand, dig in and hold on tight. You may be able to make more friends along the way, but as the saying goes, a friendship established is worth two in the bush, or something like that. The next relationship you must evaluate is with your significant partner. Is your relationship joyous, mutually beneficial, meaningful, fun, deep, and a real pleasure to have and to hold? If not, how is it falling short and how can it be improved? Is your partner supportive of your goals and are you supportive of his or hers? If not, why not? If so, can it be improved at all? How? Are you and your partner willing to work together towards something that makes your relationship better? If at the end of these questions you have come to the conclusion that the relationship cannot be saved or it simply won't work, move on. Don't linger or worry about being alone or lonely. It is better to be alone and seeking meaningful connection than to be connected without meaning. Keep that in mind and move forward with your head held high. As long as you learn from your mistakes, they were worth it. The last and most important relationship you must evaluate is your relationship with yourself. This relationship is supremely voluntary because if you don't like the person you are, you have all the power necessary to change it. How do you feel about yourself? Are you happy? Do you even know what truly makes you happy? Are you angry or sad? Have you discovered what is causing this anger? Perhaps you feel hatred towards yourself. Figure out what it is you hate, because if you do not, you will never be able to forgive yourself. Forgiveness is an important step towards self-acceptance, and self-acceptance is a necessary step towards self-actualization. Once you have forgiven yourself for all the transgressions you perceive you have committed, you will start accepting yourself for who you are. You will be able to evaluate yourself on all of your true strengths and weaknesses, and you will not degrade yourself for them, but encourage yourself through them. This profound understanding of who you are as a person will lead you to understand the person you want to be. This perception of self-actualization, of understanding the person you are capable of becoming, will lead to self-love. If you can love yourself for who you are as a complete person, and you are headed in the right direction towards who you want to be, you will achieve the kinds of relationships that seem so foreign to so many people now. You will be a beacon of hope and light and love for all those you choose to have in your life, and together you will find happiness. Since happiness and connection are what we seek so badly in this world, it seems odd sometimes when you realize that they are also the hardest things for us to achieve. You might be wondering if I'm insinuating that if they weren't so hard to achieve, we wouldn't want them. This is not the case. I believe happiness and connection are the things we desire most as humans. We desire to be connected with the people around us on a deep, meaningful, joyous, voluntary, and mutually beneficial level. We know that this level of connection is what will bring us our greatest happiness. If happiness and connection were easier to achieve, we would simply have more of it. It is my sincerest hope that this presentation will bring you and me both more happiness and connection.